Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. So today we are on with the bucket. It's a long time since I've done anything with the bucket. You can see already what's wrong with this one. So this bucket gets used for horse muck, mucking out horses, and it's real corrosive, is horse muck and horse piss, and yeah, it's just rotting the floor out. That way you can tell, but it looks like it's had quite a few knocks and bangs from underneath as well. Somehow, I don't know what they've been doing with that, but yeah, it's rotten, and the edge is not that great. Well, it's not too bad, but if I'm going to put a new floor in it, I might as well put a new edge on it as well. So I always get comments when I do buckets asking whether it's cost effective to put a new floor in, or why didn't you just buy a new one. So this bucket, from new, it's only been a cheapy bucket. It's not been a very well made or expensive bucket. And I can tell it's a cheapy bucket because they're not fully seam welded, they're only stitch welded. It's only been made out of 5mm plate, and then these side bits are only 10mm plate. The brackets are only 15mm, and these are manitou brackets, and they don't have a bar that goes all the way across, so they're not very strong. And because they're only made out of 15mm plate, the locking pins have bent them out like that. And then the straps that the brackets are welded to aren't very wide, and they also aren't very thick. And then underneath, you can see it's only had real thin, or not very wide, strips underneath. So it's just been a light, cheap bucket. So a bucket like that, you'd probably, for a new one, you'd probably pay £1,400, £1,500 for one. But then for a good quality bucket, the same size as that, you'd be looking at £2,500 for something similar, but a good quality bucket, good quality general purpose bucket. So I'm just looking on the Allbutt website now. These are generally good strong buckets, or Allbutt buckets. So that is their e-handling bucket. A lot stronger made than what this one is. And I'm looking there, which is a 2 cubic metre, 7'6" bucket, 76. And if you look on the pricing page, yeah, is it 76? That's how much they charge for a new one. Yeah, so I can put a new floor and a new edge on that bucket a lot cheaper than what it costs to buy a good quality new one. And I put a thicker floor in it, thicker straps underneath, make it a stronger bucket. But the price, well, it'll still be cheaper than what a cheap bucket would be, but not by much. But you're making a cheap bucket into a better, stronger bucket. So that's why it is cost effective to do it. If it was any worse, if the back of it was rotten and the sides were rotten, then it probably wouldn't be cost effective, but as it is now, it is. So what I'll do first, I think, is I'll tip it upside down, then cut the floor out from underneath. It is actually seam welded all the way down the back there. It's pressed, the floor is flat and then pressed up at the back, welded across there. The back is down and pressed, but then that's only seam welded along that joint there. Yeah, but I could do with removing it all the way up to there and then pressing a new floor and press it up at the back, same as it is now. So decide what to do with that after, but I'll get the main floor cut out first. This edge, it looks like it's had a bigger edge on originally, and I've cut through the old edge and then butted the new edge up to the remaining bit of the old edge and then welded it down. But I think, I'm going to the trouble of putting a new floor in it. We'll put a new edge on it as well, because I don't really want to be dealing with that old edge welded to a new edge. So you'll just cut through the sides and get rid of all that to start with. You can see what kind of state it's in now. I've got it tipped upside down. It's had a few farmer fixes before by the look of it. I don't know how it's got so dented in there. Like it's had a bit of stainless steel welded in there. So I think I'll get the plasma torch out and we'll just cut down there. I'll just cut straight through that and we'll clean that up afterwards and just get the floor out of it. And then, yeah, decide what we're going to do with this bit that goes back down there. And that's all cracked through there and all the way down to there. You can see as well where the old edge has just been cut off and then this new edge has been butted up to it and then welded down. Right, that's the floor cut out then, so I'll just cut all the way around that. That's out. Just, I haven't moved the forklift back yet, but I'm just going to cut along here now. You can see where the two bits of plate are, where it's not been welded. And then I'll cut along there, just wash that away so I can get like the separation line all the way across. And then there's a bit left there, I don't know whether to plasma that off or just grind that down. And then we'll have to get that bit out as well. That bit's pretty rotten. And then I'll just cut through the edge, but there's that bit to remove as well. So yeah, I'll get on and do that now. So when I'm cutting stuff out like this, it is pretty smoky. So I do have that fan running. It's not running at the moment, it's just freewheeling, but I'll turn it off so you guys can hear what I'm saying. But when I'm cutting out, I have that running to suck all the fumes and smoke out. So I was just about to unload this wagon because our JCB is out spreading muck, unloading muck spreaders, and my forklift has burst a pipe and pissed all its oil out. Right, I've got forklift fixed. It was just a hydraulic pipe that goes to the foot pedal for your forwards and backwards. Right, sort of wasted 2 hours of time. Yeah, we're sorted now. Just have a quick banana and then we'll get on with that. I'm just gouging that weld across to get rid of that bit of plate there. I gouge it out rather than cut it out with a grinder, and then I'm sort of removing the weld at the same time. There will be a bit to grind flat, but right, I've got all that bit cut out then, and then cleaned up all the sides around there. So I think that's about ready now. I'll take some measurements how wide the new bit of plate needs to be for the floor, and then it needs 2 presses on it. There's a press there to there, and then another press from there up to there. So I'll have to work out what them angles are, get the measurements off that, and then we can cut a new bit of plate out to go in there. I've got that sheet cut down to length. So 2280 is what we wanted, so I'll cut that bit off. I think we can get away without cutting any off there. If anything, it wanted 50mm cutting off, but might be able to overlap that onto the edge, providing it's not too much. So we'll leave that for now. That bit that I cut off, I can use that as my test piece, so I'll put my 2 presses on there at the measurements I've got, make sure that's right and get my angle right, and then press it onto the big bit. That was a good guess, so that's what we want, about 40 degrees. That's nearly bang on, a little bit smooth now. Yeah, a tiny bit too much, but it was a good guess. Well, actually, well, about spot on actually. Yeah, that was a very good guess. So that press setting is 815. So the second press we want 24 degrees. I've altered that to 770. See what that does. I've got that test piece pressed, so the second press was a bit too much. I had to press that back a bit, but it fits the bucket pretty well, so that is what we want. And there should be my press settings then. So 815 for the first press, and then 787. I've knocked it off a bit from what it was, so it was a bit more than that. So hopefully that should be right for that. We're using 5mm plate, so if it is a bit one way or the other, I can pull it more or less to fit the bucket. Yeah, I've got them marked on, so yeah, we'll put that into the press now and get them pressed. Press that one first and then that one. Just not quite pressed enough that, so I'll have to put it back in the press and try and press them both a little bit more. Right, I think I've got that flaw to where I want it. I've got the gap. Well, that's about flush with there. Would be better if I had a bit more at this side to weld on, but it's just how it fits there. That is, there's not a gap there. I can weld that up. There's a bit of a gap in the middle, and then it's nice. I can weld that in. And then that's about the same there. On the inside, the measurement is slightly different. There's 10mm bigger at that side than there is at that side, but it's just, I'm just having to put it in so it fits how it should fit on the other side. I think because I had to double press that, when if you have to double press it and your first press line is not dead on lined up with your second press line, it does press more at one side than it does at the other. I think that's maybe what's happened. It's slightly lower than what the old floor was, so I'll have to grind a bit more off that because it's rusty. But I think other than that we're alright. This sort of needs lining up a bit better yet, but I just want to get that where I want it. So I think I'll tack that in now. So I've got all the floor tacked in now, so I had to run down there with a slitting disc, use the slitting disc as a grinding disc to grind the rust away that was underneath there. So that should weld in alright, hopefully. Yeah, and it's all tacked in everywhere it needs tacking in, down the sides, across the back. So I think I might have to trim a bit more out the floor because the new bucket edge sits up again there. If it was under there, then there'd be a gap to fill. I sort of had to trim as much of that away as I could because there was old, like crappy weld. Obviously there was a gap and then it filled up with weld, but the weld wasn't very good, so I just had to blast that away. So yeah, I might have to chop the floor off by there, but I think I'll tip it upside down so this is level. We'll sit a bucket edge on and then mark down the back of that where we need to trim it off by. So I've got that marked at the right length, so we'll get that cut off and we'll sit it on there and then decide how much of this needs cutting off. I've decided I'm not going to chop any of the floor out because I don't necessarily know whether these are the same. If I chop the floor out and stick the edge onto these, if that side's not the same as this side, then the edge might be not level with the bucket. So I'm thinking I'll just leave that on there and I'll just have to fill this gap in. And I've got that flush with that, same at the other side. I will have to take the edge back off again and clean the rust off the edge where it's going to be welded down there, across there. I think that's going to be better than chopping the floor back to there. And I can see by the shadow line of the torch, if you watch the shadow line, follow it up onto the top of the bucket, you'd say that is pretty much parallel with the top of the bucket, I would have said. Anyway, worry about that after. I'll take it back off again, clean it up, grind it clean, and then sit it back on and get it square. Right, got the edge set on, got it tacked on at either end. I think I'm going to weld round here, down there, round there first, and then I'll bring some 150x12 in, flat bar, and make some straps to go from there to the edge, and there to the edge, and put one cross brace in, and then that with the underneath done, and then turn it upside down and then weld around the inside. So I've got welded all the way down there. Some bits I had to do 2 welds and then weld over the top of it because there was a bit of a gap. Anyway, it's all filled in and that's all welded round both sides. So I thought I had some 150x12 flat I was going to use for straps, but it turns out I don't. It was a bit of channel that I was looking at, like the flat of a bit of a channel that was buried in the heap. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to cut some straps out of that plate there. So I've got it set up ready, and we'll cut 2 bits of plate out of that. I've got the underside fully welded up then. So I don't usually weld these straps on, like fully seam weld them. Usually just stitch weld them on. But because it's getting used for what it's used for, horse muck, I filled them all in, and then it can't get horse piss in between the two bits of plate. Like the old floor had rotted out where the straps were because it had got moisture in between. So I thought if I fully weld them on, then there's no room for any moisture to get in between. I've not welded the edge fully on because it doesn't really need welding fully on. Yeah, I think it's unnecessary. It just makes it harder for the next person to get the edge off if it is fully welded on. We don't really need it on this type of bucket. And I put some of them extra little bits of bucket edge on the back corners, just stop it wearing the corners through. So yeah, that's all that welded on. These holes are quite worn, so I think while it's upside down now, I might just put a bit of weld in that back corner, because the hole is quite oval and it's quite thin there now. And then I'll just die grind it back out. It's supposed to be a 36mm hole, I think. Really know why they've chamfered them off there like that. It's just made it a weak point. But anyway, yeah, fill them in a bit, die grind them out. And they do want bending back in again because they're bent out quite a bit. I've got it sat on the trestles now, ready to weld up around the inside. I welded down that top edge there. So yeah, it's just there and the edge to weld round. When it was upside down and sat on the trestles, I didn't quite realise how much of a bow it has down the front edge. Otherwise I would have straightened it out a bit When it was sat on the trestles, you couldn't really see. I could see it had a bit of a bow in it, but not to that extent. So I think I'll put that winch onto that strap, and then I'll weld something on here, and I'll just pull it back straight a bit before I weld it down. I aren't too concerned about a bow that way anyway, because the edges always wear out more at the ends, because the middle of the bucket flexes up over. So if it's sort of, it'd be better if it was straight, but if it's got a bit of a pre-bend in it that way, it's not going to matter, because when you push the bucket on the floor, it straightens it out anyway. It'll just help to wear the middle more, I suppose, if anything. I've got all that welded up now. Edge welded on, welded down the sides and up there. Got them corners built up as well and ground down a bit. So yeah, that is how much bow I've got in it the other way. So hopefully when I let the pressure off now, it should be straighter than it was. So I'll let that off, see what happens. I've got that chain released off there, so there is still a little bit of a bow in it, but so I'm not really concerned about that because the main force of the bucket is on each side. So that's why your edges always wear out first, because that's where all the pressure is pushing on the edge. So a bit of bow downwards is fine, because when you push your bucket down onto the concrete, it just bows it back up again. Should have had a bit more pressure on the chain when I welded it up. Anyway, is what it is. Not too concerned about that. So we'll chop that off. There's a bit of welding to do behind where that is, and then we'll straighten these brackets out, I think, and then that's it. Right, that's that one straighter than it was, so I just warmed it up down around there and then winched it back with that, and then it was a little bit too much in over, so then I put that in, jacked it out a bit, and then give it a smack there with a hammer because there was sort of a bit of a kink in there, and then that sort of straightened that out. So I wait for that one to cool down, and then I do exactly the same thing with that one. I'm using my big pepper pot to warm it up. It uses a lot of oxygen, does that, and it makes a lot of noise. It also makes a lot of heat. Right, that's that one. Pulled straight as well, near enough. So yeah, that's that one sorted. I was going to thinking of putting like a triangle in there to stop these bending, but there isn't really any reason why they should bend, providing he stops, providing that butts up again the headstock in the right place, and then the pin should line up. So I don't know why they've really got bent like they have. So these are manitou brackets. They have a hook that like hooks around there, and then a locking pin, hydraulic locking pin that shoots through there to stop it coming off. I'm just going to give it a quick blast over with some semi-gloss red oxide, just stop it going rusty. I would have normally washed it off with degreaser, but I've run out of degreaser, so I've just been over it all with brake cleaner, rubbed it all down, been underneath, done that. Give it a quick spray, nice thick coat of red, stop it going rusty, and then get that done, and then I need to go and get some new lights because I've got two that's gone out now. I get some more of them LED ones to replace them. Right, that's that painted then. So we've got 2 coats on the bottom and 2 coats on the inside as well. Thought I'd tip it up to do underneath rather than trying to paint it upside down. Yeah, by the time the forklift has dropped down and goes down a bit by itself, the bottom will be dry. So yeah, I think I'll go and get some lights now while that dries. Right, so that's had time to dry now, so that's done, finished, take that out. I didn't put any corner gussets in like I do sometimes because, like I say, it is just for horse muck, so it's only a real light duty bucket, or what it's going to be used for is real light duty, so yeah, it didn't really need any. So yeah, that's done, finished, take that out, get on with the next job. As it seems to have turned out pretty long as this video. I don't mean to make the job seem more of a job than it actually is. Putting a new floor in a bucket is generally a pretty straightforward job, but I don't want to miss any parts out, sort of try and video the full job and explain it to you as I'm doing it. But you guys that have done it before know it's a straightforward job, so sorry for for boring you if I have. Also, next weekend, I always forget because I only put a video out once a week. Once a week. Next weekend I'm tractor pulling at Walsingham Agricultural Show, which is the 7th and 8th of September. Or is it the 6th and 7th of September? Next weekend anyway, whatever next weekend is. But 2 weeks ago at Pickering, I bent 2 push rods in the engine, which I've got them out and I've got 2 replacements to go in, so providing it hasn't bent any valves or anything, it should be good to go. So I'll put that back together tomorrow, which is Sunday tomorrow. Then the weekend after Walsingham, there's another tractor pulling due at Penrith, which I'm hoping to be at, again with the Leyland, if I haven't broken it at Walsingham. And then the weekend after Penrith is Emily Moore, which I'm hoping to be at as well. At Emily Moore, they've altered the rules again to make it a bit more simpler for us independent boys, because the rules and regulations put quite a lot of people off, so they were struggling to get us there. So the work that I did previously, putting the skids on the front and the turbo shield, it was not really necessary anymore, but at least it makes it a bit safer. But yeah, I just thought I'd mention that. If a few of you are interested, I'll be at Walsingham, Penrith and Emily Moore 3 weekends in a row, if my tractor is still running. Walsingham is a really good little show, which is up near Durham somewhere. So that's a good little show to go to. I've never been to Penrith before, so I don't know what that's like. And again, Emily Moore is very good as well, so yeah. That's all for this week. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.